So, in this episode, Maple Tree officially assembles their Pokemon team. Each of them now has their starter Pokemon ranging from Ditto to the likes. And honestly, this was a fantastic episode to leave us off for 2 weeks. As if you didn't watch my video I did on Monday there, it was announced that episode 7 is delayed by 2 weeks, and ultimately we'll get 7 through 10 after those 2-week break, but 11 and 12 are still up in the air given the fact that they will have run out of time slots. So it's unfortunate, and honestly, when you look at the quality of this season of Bofuri, it's really shocking in the way because you look at these 6 episodes, they're really polished, they're really well refined. So basically, it says to me that they were just this close to having the whole season being able to air and not have to have that Kadokawa or Aniplex curse where both production committees are just so bad at managing their shows that a slight bump where outsourcing just can't happen, we end up having to wait a little bit. But I think the show can manage. It really has been an absolute fantastic second season. Maybe it's fast-paced to some, but in terms of the quality of getting us invested, wishing we could play New World Online, it's doing a fantastic job. And honestly, the remaining pets that each of the characters ended up getting are all very distinct and unique. Truly just make me jealous we can't play video games to this degree. But before we jump any further, gotta mention, we got that full live reaction available on my Patreon. So if you want to see my full uncut thoughts to today's episode, head on over there and consider supporting, because this is always a fun one to watch. And honestly, out of all the new pets we've seen, honestly, going this far, out of every pet we've seen, not only just in this episode, I think Ditto is probably the best. You essentially have a mimic, right? It's like playing Elden Ring with a mimic. You basically can summon someone who has all your stats and abilities, and honestly, Kanade did pretty well. I really have to say that's probably the most useful out of all of them. Not to say each of their pets aren't cool in their own distinct ways. We got basically a fairy, a spirit, we got a snake that can probably become a giant snake if we really want to. We got Syrup, I mean, that's self-explanatory, but the idea of essentially having Ditto that can mimic your form, I mean, how many times when we play video games do we just wish, man, if only I had another one of me, this boss fight would be amazing, it would be easy, I'd clear it without struggle. Some video games, like the Soulsborne games, sometimes do give you that ability, and certain MMORPGs as well. But at the end of the day, it's not a common mechanic, so essentially having in an episode where everyone's getting their own Pokemon in a lot of ways, it was nice to see essentially a Ditto pop up, and maybe it'll have a few extra bells and whistles where it can also copy other things. I mean, it literally looked like a book in the episode, so you never quite know. But I honestly think out of all of the new abilities and pets that we've seen this season, I think our Armor Boy probably has one of the more useful ones for him personally, because one of his things, which even he says in this episode as he's clearing the cave full of zombies, is that he has a hard time keeping up with Maple because of her ridiculous defense. Now we have a pet that essentially is armor for him. I really thought what was going to happen was it would become like a golem, because it looked like a ghost golem. That's really what it looked like. But by the end of the episode, we get to see what it can actually do, and basically it latches on and becomes extra armor for our already armored boy. I think it's going to be a mixed response of if people laugh or if people have hard eyes like some characters. I thought it looked really cool myself. But I like the fact that each of their pets feel perfect for what they're going for, or at the very least, it feels like it matches the visual tone of their characters, but also given what we're seeing could be very useful in different ways. I think it would have been very easy to write a situation because we have a fox and a turtle for the first season, right? And that's mostly the pets we get to experience. It'd be very easy to keep the pets very simple, all just animals or all just basic creatures you would expect. But we fought a giant snake to get a little snake. The snake, if she wants, could become extra big. In this episode, we literally see the phoenix bird do the exact same skill that Maple uses for her own turtle. There's a good variety and a good mechanic system at play that will allow them to really flex how far they want to get creative with different fights, different events, and I really feel like by the time this episode wrapped up, I looked at them all and said, okay, even if Maple's not with them, they're going to have a lot better time now that they have something that really complements their skills and fighting styles. And once we got into that volcano, I really had a fun time because, I mean, basically it was summed down to as our girl needed to find a bunch of items. It was an egg, a bunch of ores, some plants and things like that. I mean, it was kind of funny because she's like, oh yeah, we need to find this red plant. And I'm looking at this location, it's literally a glowing red environment. I mean, that has to be a little more challenging than just your typical find a yellow flower in a green forest quest. But I like the fact that they even have these like little moments that really once again flex that someone's writing this from a point of understanding game development. So you're fighting a fire dragon in this episode, and basically the floor where the dragon's sitting at is covered in lava. it's literally mentioned and revealed that, oh, what are we gonna do? Like, if you walk into fire, you're probably gonna get burned. Oh, they turned off environmental damage. But then you're probably thinking, oh, but if they turned off environmental damage, isn't that gonna make it incredibly easy? Oh no, the creature we're about to fight is boosted, so because not every character is going to have a flying ability, or not every character is going to be Maple and can use her octopus tentacles to literally, after the dragon fires a fireball, engulf it, throw it back in its mouth, and almost suffocate it. Not every character is going to have the same playstyle, so by basically making it so everyone has an equal chance at defeating this, so you can walk in the lava if you don't have the ability to attack from a distance, or you can't float around its head. I like the fact that every time you look at an event or a boss fight or just the general mechanics in this New World Online, you look at and say, even though some things aren't balanced properly, the game developers actively are trying to make it a balanced experience. But at the end of the day, this wasn't written by someone who's never played a video game. And that's one of my biggest criticisms of shows like these, or light novels, mangas, whatever it is ultimately there's so many authors who will look at trends and say, oh, let's do SAO, let's do so-and-so, right? And they've never picked up a game. They've never really invested anything more than playing 2D side-scroller Mario. But by having someone who it feels like understands game development, and if they don't, they have the luckiest goddamn mindset in terms of writing it, because as someone who has studied game development and has worked on video games and has played more than most, this game feels like someone who actually understands mechanics, and it goes a long way for the viewer experience because it makes it feel like not just something where the characters are getting lost for hours on end after their school day's over or their work day's over. It's understandable. There's no game quite like this in their world, and it really feels like a one-of-a-kind experience. And like I said, it was a very polished episode. I still think the only thing that was really noticeably weird in terms of visual direction, I still think it worked, but it was when Sally was in the bookcase area and she was running around, the 3D was a lot more noticeable. I understand why they went with it, and it does work for the speed, but that was like the most noticeable visual inconsistency. Other than that though, I really feel like they really polished it. I think that's the only reason we got a delay, is there was probably just a few moments throughout the remaining episodes that maybe just they were struggling. Maybe some big events coming up that just they can't refine it enough to be releasable. But ultimately, what we've seen so far has been a very refined season. I think if you enjoyed Season 1, you're probably at the very least enjoying Season 2 just as much. For me personally, I find myself liking it even more. I like the events more, I like the complexity of the game design, I like that the admins are still finding new ways to just try to stump these characters but make it as balanced as possible. It's been an absolutely fantastic season so far, and I can easily wait a couple of weeks for episode 7 and the remaining episodes as it stands. But that's just my feelings anyway. Drop your own down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to ring that bell so you get notified when I upload on the channel, especially because it's going to be a couple of weeks. You may forget to tune back into the channel. You don't want to do that. I'd be very disappointed in you. So consider doing that. Support the Patreon. We get that full live reaction over there, and of course you can also get those video shoutouts like a few are getting here. So today we got Alla Ann, Zia, and Guthfarder, so I appreciate the support. Till next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.